Okay, that's going to bring us to the Sherman Police Department. We have a couple items under the police department. The first item is a presentation of the Juvenile Adjustment Program Initiative by Richard Wistocki. I think he has about a 15-minute presentation, correct, sir?
Yes, sir.
Chief Banger, do you want to lead us in?
Detective Wistocki is actually our featured presenter tonight for the cyberbullying and social networking thing. This is our second session this month. We had Detective Wistocki last year up in the junior high to talk to parents about some of the threats and dangers of social media and cyberbullying to make them aware for their students and their children. He's a child crime expert, has dedicated his career to helping children by tirelessly pursuing, apprehending, and prosecuting child predators. He's an active cyber crimes detective, and he educates law enforcement using cutting-edge investigative techniques and parents and students on responsible digital activity. 30 years decorated member of law enforcement, 23 years as a SWAT team member. He authored the state of Illinois sexting law, authored the state of Illinois sexual exploitation of child law. He's a member of the United States Secret Service Electronic Crimes Task Force Unit, a member of the Illinois Attorney General's Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force, high technology crimes detective in Naperville, Illinois. Formed the Will County, Illinois State's Attorney High Technology Crimes Unit that made over 90 sexual predator arrests in its first 3.5 years. He also created the Juvenile Justice Online program, a first of its kind diversion program, redefining the future of positive juvenile reform that he's going to speak to you about tonight.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief. Good evening, everyone. My name is Richard Wistocki, and I have been a police officer for 30 years. Part of my background is in child exploitation. This is where I train parents how to watch their kids. I show kids, I empower them how not to be victims. As we're teaching through the Naperville schools over the last 10 years, we empower kids not to be victims. And what that does is when I show them what the keywords are on how not to be a victim, we cut our victimization with sexting, cyberbullying, sextortion, half every year by going into the schools. So one of the things that I did with the Will County State's Attorney Jim Glasgow, in 2011 he asked me to come aboard his team to create the High Technology Crimes Unit. And this new team I formed, I hired a full-time investigator and a part-time computer forensic guy. So we had a 3-point mission. The first mission was to train all the law enforcement who are doing these types of cases, their investigations on how to investigate cybercrime. The second thing we were going to do is that we were going to do proactive cases when it comes to peer-to-peer downloading of child pornography. Because 90% of the people who download child pornography, they are hands-on offenders when it comes to molesting children. So the third one was to teach in all the Will County schools. What I saw in my 4 years there, we arrested 100 predators. We probably saved about 450 kids out of those 4 years at the hands of those predators. But what I saw was very interesting, that the Will County law enforcement did not do something that's within their realm of juvenile officers, is station adjustment. Station adjustment can only be done by certified juvenile officers. Last year, I wrote the SRO bill, School Resource Officer Law, along with Senator Lightford and her staff, and we wanted to codify what the school resource officer does. So now they have to be officers in good standing, they have to be a certified juvenile officer, and have to have NASRO training, National Association of School Resource Officers. They have to have that training in order to be in a school. So what I saw in Will County is that no one was doing diversion. So what they did in Will County, they either sent that child back to their parent, didn't do anything with the kid, or they sent them to court, fingerprint, photographed them, and gave them a criminal record for the rest of their lives. And what we were doing in Naperville, we were station adjusting everything. Now, what do I mean by station adjustment? So if you're a juvenile officer in the state of Illinois, it means you take a week-long class and you become certified to be an advocate for children. So there is a hierarchy of what you can do with the child, and I'll outline them for you. You can do what's called the PTH. That's called parent to handle. You can do an informal station adjustment. That means there's no arrest, and then the kid gets consequences. You can do a formal station adjustment where there is an arrest, but it doesn't go to court as long as they do the diversion. And then there's youth jury, pre-court adjustment through probation, or adjudication. So the juvenile officer has a wide range of what he or she can do with that child to defer them from having a criminal record. So when I left, after 100 arrests in Will County, I said, you know what, I got to do something to give them something to use instead of sending kids to court, making them sex offenders, giving them records, because in Naperville, we're hiring close to 10 officers a month because we're going to retire 70 police officers over the next couple of years. What's happening over there is that we are looking at the backgrounds of brand new police officers, and we're seeing fingerprint records for them mailbox damages when they were 12 years old. Because those fingerprints never go away. So I got together with one of my good friends who is a Cisco engineer. We've been friends for a very long time. And I wrote down on paper what a station adjustment was. And I said, I want to put this online. Thus, we created JuvenileJusticeOnline.org. So Juvenile Justice Online, we released it at the end of 2016 at the National School Resource Officers Conference. Currently today, we have over 1,600 people using Juvenile Justice Online. Just this past year, we have had close to 75 diversions nationwide. So now that I'm retired, I wanted to do 30 years in Naperville, but I only made the 28 because something happened to me. I did a TED Talk. I did a TED Talk back in November of 2017, and this just exploded. So I had to retire to do this. So now I travel across the country showing schools, showing law enforcement how to effect change in a juvenile instead of ruining their lives with arrest. So in schools across Illinois, there's something called SB 100. I don't know if you're familiar with it, where a group of people had got together and they passed a law down in Springfield that you can no longer expel a child from school unless it's for a violent act or serious drug activity. So they have to keep them in school. Well, what are they doing in school? They're sitting in a room. That's it. So it's an in-school suspension, which does nothing. So a lot of schools are using Juvenile Justice Online as well. So I'm going to give you a demonstration of how it works. I initially created it for sexting and cyberbullying because courts didn't know what to do with it, law enforcement didn't know what to do with it, and a lot of the teen courts and youth court were not technology advanced enough to understand what it is to do this. So if you're an agent for Juvenile Justice Online, meaning a user of the system, you can be a judge. I trained all the family court judges in the state of Illinois last year. They loved it. You can be a prosecutor, probation, SRO, juvenile officer. You can be a school dean or a principal. You all have the same permissions to use Juvenile Justice Online. So here's where it comes into the nuts and bolts. So let's say your child got in trouble for cyberbullying. Okay? He sent a hateful message to 3 of the cheerleaders who pick on him in school. Like, I'm going to burn your house down, or look at this girl, here's a picture of her, and I train a lot of the detectives and officers here in Sherman to show them how to investigate that type of stuff. So when all the evidence comes back to your son, we say, okay, you've got 2 choices. We can arrest, photograph, fingerprint your son or your daughter, send them to court. You're going to have to get an attorney for about $2,000 or $3,000, and maybe in a year you'll find out what happens to your kid. You're going to have to take off of work, your kid's going to take off of school, and we have to go through the judicial system and have a record. Or we can put your kid through a diversion where not only your kid is going to have tasks, but you as a parent is going to have a task as well. So I created Juvenile Justice Online to be free for law enforcement and schools to use. So depending on what you choose, if you chose to do the diversion, your kid's not arrested, you as a parent have 4 tasks. You pay a $150 training fee. That trains you and trains your kid. It allows us to use it for free. You have to watch, as a parent, a 90-minute video as to what your responsibility is to that kid's technology. You then have to take your kid's devices away, and we give you free monitoring software for 30 days so you can see remotely all the text, all the pictures, all the websites, all the searches remotely. Then you have to follow the kid through the diversion. What the kid has to do is that they will have to watch a 45-minute video and take a 10-question test that we produced. They will have to write a 5-page research paper on the dangers and teen suicide when it comes to cyberbullying. They will have to do a self-esteem counseling through the school social worker or mental health professional, apology letters. If the parents want their kid drug tested, we mandate drug testing. So when it comes to diversion and restorative justice, kids make mistakes. They shouldn't have to pay for that for the rest of their lives, and that's why I created Juvenile Justice Online. So I'd like to give you a demonstration on how it works and what it looks like, if you don't mind. Okay. Any agents that using it, there's a 4-hour class on how to investigate sexting and cyberbullying. For patrol officers, they can have an account, and how to investigate or take a report of an online situation. You'll see the student cyberbullying video. There's the sexting video. Recently, last week, the entire state of Oregon is going to Juvenile Justice Online. Their entire school districts are going to Juvenile Justice Online because they no longer want to arrest kids. Surprise, Arizona, they are putting in 5 people a week, mostly for vaping and fighting and hate speech. And so they absolutely love it. The Oregon school districts have a real problem with truancy. So what do we do for truancy? They have to watch the truancy video and take a test while they're watching it. I took 3 people. I took a Latina with learning disabilities, I took a high school athlete, and I took a Chicago gang chief. And we interviewed them. Their common denominator is that they were all heroin addicts. Their other common denominator, where the crossroads of where they went awry, is truancy. So they all talk about their experiences of what they did, trying to give the kids an introspective look. If you do X and Y and Z, this is what you're going to get. So, and the gang chief spent half his life in prison. He's 50 years old. So again, it's really powerful. So it's a training system as well. So we'll go ahead in here and we'll start a new case. So I'll add new here. And so here's where we are sitting with the parent, with the kid not in the room. Okay? One thing I learned, when I was in patrol for 4.5 years, I was a real go-getter. I had the most DUI arrests, had the most drugs. Before you go back to the road and you get kicked out of investigations, I just want to give you one simple thing that can stop all this. When you spend more time with parents and make them see that you have their child's best interest at hand, the kid comes easy. I said, all right, Lieutenant, I'll try that. Never had a red file since then. When we spend more time with parents, that we're going to make sure their kid learns a lesson without ruining their lives, they trust you. The kid comes easy. Same thing here. This is what I teach our officers and our agents to do. Once you have the parent, the kid is not in the room, you're setting up a contract between the parent and the kid, you want to do, and make it effective. So we'll use the bullying situation that we talked about. So in our laws, it actually is harassment through electronic communication. And then we put our police number in there, we put our parent first name, last name, parent email, child email, and we put all their information. So when we come in here, we're going to say, okay, parent, because it's restorative justice, he's going to have to admit to the offense, and when you hover over any one of these consequences, it'll tell you exactly what to tell the parent. So they have 10 school all the rules there. So if it is a police diversion, not a school diversion, this is where the teeth lie. Failure to comply with this diversion will result in your booking an arrest and having to go to court. So we're going to check that one off. Make sure when you hover over this, you tell them 12 font double spaced. Because if you don't, the teachers in the group, you know what you're going to get. If a kid's on the autistic spectrum, there's no way they can write 5. So we'll just put 1 page in there with the help of their social worker. So written apology letters, that's huge. Truancy, not there. Drug testing. So you turn to the parents and say, you think they're smoking weed or anything like that? No, I don't think so. There's that one time I came back from the homecoming dance and I thought something was weird. I said, let's just do it. So we put a drug test in there. So we have them go to Walgreens and do a drug test. Now, I can't tell you how important, when it comes to cyberbullying or sexting, self-esteem counseling is important, whether it's their school social worker or other mental health professional. I had an SRO in New Jersey, and I had another female SRO in Chino, California. Last year, they contacted me back and they said, Rich is using Juvenile Justice Online. They're no longer arresting kids, they're putting them all through this. There's also a recommendation letter from one of the Catholic schools that has Juvenile Justice Online, one of the charter schools that have Juvenile Justice Online. In the Catholic schools, what they're doing is, if you violated their code, out you go and you have to go to another school, right? Well, there goes $65,000 walking out that door too. And they all want their enrollment to be up. So now what happens, you mess up the code of conduct, if you do a diversion, you can stay. So again, it's positive education, and not only is it free training for the law enforcement officers, it's also great training for parents and kids. So, thank you everyone for having me, I appreciate your time. Thank you. Any questions?
Any board members have any questions for Rich?
I do have one. So like if, say, the village goes with it, how much, is it training per officer or do you?
The training is free for the officers.
For all of them?
Yeah, it's all of them. It's just that if they wanted the 20 codes, it's $3,000. Unlimited codes is $4,000 per year. Yeah.
Deputy Chief Folsom.
There's one big thing that he's failing to mention with this. One of the accrediting bodies for like the juvenile certifications is the Illinois Attorney General's office. The Illinois Attorney General's office, outside of him, I've been to many trainings. His program is the only program they endorse, and that includes teen court. They don't want anything to do with teen court. This is the only program. Because it meets all of the statutory requirements. For example, he didn't hit home hard enough on that records. Records with security and retention are huge. Now with the new law, after 12 months, we have to expunge the records. There's no like, may, it's you shall. His system does all that. There's a lot less overhead associated with it, so that's all.
Thank you. Any other questions, board members? I know Sergeant Entringer, I don't know if you wanted to say you stumbled across Rich, what, a year and a half ago? And we brought Rich in to do a presentation at the Williamsville Junior High, is where your presentation was. I had the opportunity of attending that and was blown away at the information that you presented, the information that you have locked up in your enormous body of work that you've done. I looked you up online, in terms of your background, your career. It's second to none. And there's a reason why, Deputy Chief Fulcher says that, your program is accredited and endorsed by the Attorney General's office and DOJ soon to be. The more I examine this with the chief and the deputy chief, I can't see a reason why we don't kind of move down this path. The one thing that I really think is a huge benefit in this program is the interaction and constant interaction that keeps the parents involved in this.
Absolutely.
Some of these other programs, shifted off to outside community members or other students or somebody else outside of the family. And in my opinion, everything starts with the family.
Absolutely.
If the parents aren't in control, then it's going to be difficult for the officer or any other outside individual to be in total control. So having the officer maintain constant contact and communication in this process, as well as the parents, is key. So I think that's one great advantage to something like this. I think that's why it's excelling. And that's why when you stood on the TED stage and did what you did, it's taken off. This is, the age and era of
It's never going away.
tracking.
2 more points I want to bring up, and you bring this up, is that The biggest complaint I get, I train all over the United States, but in Illinois I train a lot. And their biggest complaint as officers, as juvenile officers says, well, we sent it to probation, we don't know what happened to it. We don't get no follow-up. So if I see that kid walking down the street at 1 o'clock in the morning, is he on probation or is he not? I don't know. So the officers have total control of what the destiny of this child is, and it's a positive interaction. They can call the mom and say, hey, you know you're not supposed to be here. It's part of the contract.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, we are releasing in a couple months Cyber Parenting 101. That court systems all over the country do not have a mechanism where they train kids, or parents actually, who are in divorce court. And one parent tries to be the friend of that child, the other parent tries to be the disciplinarian, and that one parent gives them everything that they want. When the kid finds themselves in trouble because of their technology, now the judge is going to order these parents to go to Cyber Parenting 101 to get 12 hours of cyber parenting training. So that's going to come out in the next couple weeks.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Very good.
Thank you.
That software, you said that you can see what the kids
Mm-hmm.
are texting or whatever,
Mhm.
you get to see what's coming in too?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Real time. If you want to stay for a couple hours, I'm more than happy to show you.
Yeah, so it's 7 o'clock.
At 7
To
o'clock.
the extent that we haven't made it clear, Rich does have a follow-up?
That's a parent presentation, full-on parent presentation.
Yeah, so you came in on February 5th
Yep.
and did a presentation. Tonight, this evening, he's staying here and he's gonna continue with
Parent presentation.
a parent presentation. So if you get the opportunity, you have the opportunity to stick around, I would highly recommend that you check out his presentation and hear what he has to offer.
Yeah,
So,
thank you.
thank you, Rich.
Thank you very much.
Move
guys.
on.
Thank you.